3 out of the 4 ganaches performed pretty much how they've been performing for years, all except for one. The 4 recipes I tested were the original, a dark and a milk chocolate. The second was milk with raspberry. Third was dark with raspberry, and the fourth was all raspberry. So the first 3, the original and the raspberry that had milk and dark, were perfect for making truffles. After it's set overnight, not in the refrigerator, just at a 68-degree room temperature room, I scooped them out. I often work left to right. This keeps things organized, and it also tells me what is oldest. And it's just like reading a book. I know that when I'm trying to dry out these balls of ganache, that I have to understand where I started and where I ended. Because wherever I started, they've been sitting out longer and they're ready to work with, and the ones I ended with are not quite ready yet. So the reason that this worked really well for my purposes was because it was thick enough to scoop, firm enough to scoop, and then it became firm enough to roll into these nice balls without falling apart or sticking to my gloves. Once this is done, they dry another 24 hours, and then I can either dip them or hand roll them like I do here. And I chose dark chocolate because it has the most cocoa butter and it will set up the nicest. The first coating is very thin, and you can tell this is very time consuming, and that's why it's really important to work clean and organized. First coating's thin, second coating's a little bit thicker to give your teeth something to bite into, but the inside I want it to remain whisper light. So the second it hits your tongue, it starts melting. And all 3 of those ganaches perform beautifully. Now there was one outlier, and it was the 100% raspberry. And to begin with, I looked at the cocoa butter content, and I knew I might have problems with it because to make it raspberry, they used the powder grinds from freeze-dried raspberries. Now, I looked at the spec sheet, I thought about things for a little while, but until I actually worked with the 100% raspberry ganache, I think I didn't quite understand how profoundly the ingredients were going to change. So as I mixed up the raspberry ganache, I did it as a caramelized sugar, caramelized cream and butter ganache, which really cooks out a lot of the moisture. And because a ganache relies on having enough water in it to encase, to hold all of the fat molecules, this product didn't work well because on top of the cocoa butter fat in the raspberry chocolate exists an additional over 30% of fat that they add so that they can emulsify their chocolate. Well, when I make the caramelized caramel, you boil off a lot of water, and if you overboil cream in a ganache, even by 10 seconds, and you boil off too much of the moisture, the water, the steam, you end up with a grainy, separated fat. And that fat is firm. I had to microwave it. The raspberry solids tasted great, but here's a quick boil in real time. Watch. That's it. Pull it off. You can even see the steam coming off. If you don't pull it off right away, you will end up with a broken ganache. And the way to fix it is to emulsify it with a hand blender and some warmed or reboiled, very quickly cream. Now, I didn't have the camera on while I did that, but it turned out beautifully. I fixed it. There was the old grainy fat, and here is the new repaired ganache. So if you break a ganache, just warm some cream. Do not evaporate any of the moisture. Add it back, and you're back in business.